All right, Adam, I want you to picture this. It's December in Toronto. The wind has that frozen battery acid quality. Everyone's fighting over parking at Yorkdale Mall. But you, smart person that you are, have found refuge in a Chinese restaurant. Steamed up windows, laminated menus, a table covered in spring rolls, fried rice, sizzling beef, maybe a plate of sweet and sour chicken that looks like it could glow in the dark. It's cozy, it's chaotic, and it's exactly what the season called for.
Yeah, there's nothing quite like it, especially during the holidays. There's something about Chinese food that just feels like a ritual.
And here's the thing, it kind of is, especially in Toronto, and especially for a lot of Jewish families. Chinese food on Christmas isn't just some quirky exception, it's the tradition. It's what you do when everything else is closed and the whole city hits pause. It's not about replacing Christmas dinner, it's about making your own kind of celebration with chopsticks. So what was your Christmas Chinese food tradition?
I actually can't recall ever having Chinese food on Christmas Day. Don't know why, but those 2 weeks off, inevitably mom doesn't want to cook every night, so you're going to order in a few times, and at least one of those times was likely to be Chinese food.
I'm right there with you. I don't think I actually had any Chinese food on Christmas Day or Christmas Eve, but definitely over the holidays, I'm getting some dim sum. I'm going downtown. We're having some great spicy noodles. It's what the holidays is about. I love it. Speed question: what's your go-to dish?
Well, by the standards of the people around me, I'm practically a hater.
What a surprise! Is there anything you actually like?
I don't mind Chinese food, but I don't love it the way that many of the people I grew up with did.
Boo! And what? This episode was your idea. I thought you loved Chinese food. Okay. You must like something.
The one thing you can always count on me to order is wonton soup. That's my one big-time go-to.
I'm a noodles guy. I love a good spicy noodle, and honestly, everything. I know that's a cop out, but I like so many different items. It's hard to talk about it. But today, this episode isn't just about what's on the plate. It's about how those plates got here. Because Chinese food in Toronto isn't just delicious, it's historical, and its history is complicated. The city's first Chinese cafes opened in the early 1900s, mostly in and around Elizabeth Street in what was then called the Ward. It was the city's first Chinatown, and it wasn't exactly welcomed with open arms.
There were laws aimed directly at Chinese restaurant owners, police raids, constant harassment. And yet they built these vibrant spaces, part business, part community hub. And they made Chinese food an essential part of Toronto's cultural fabric.
And somewhere along the way, those restaurants also became part of holiday rituals for people all across the city. Immigrants, outsiders, anyone looking for warmth and a meal when the rest of the city shut down. To help us understand all of that, where it started, how it changed, and what it means now, we spoke with someone who knows it better than almost anyone. Professor Chef Leo Chan, culinary historian, educator, and someone who spent decades connecting food and community.
Leo has a serious resume. We're talking teaching, TV appearances, major restaurant gigs, and more than a few stories about how Chinese food evolved in the city.
So, let's get into it. I'm Grayson Miller.
And I'm Adam Weiser.
And this is Muddy York. Leo, thank you so much for coming on today. For those that don't know you, could you tell the audience a little about yourself?
I am a retired professor chef. I've been in Toronto since 1966. I'm from Hong Kong and born in Macau, but I spent my school years and my whole working career in Toronto.
So let's set the scene for the audience. Let's take it back. The origins of Chinese food in Toronto.
Well, it's like telling the story once upon a time in Chinatown. The first Chinese eating place is in 1900, the early days, and it's called Sam Tom. And the restaurant is on Queen and Bay. And since then, we have moved different stages. The original one were not restaurants. They are what you call diners. And then you go into the chop suey house. And in the 50 and 60, there is what we call the first golden era. You have real restaurants. There are four restaurants. It's called the Big Four. Of course, there are more than four restaurants. And they became quite prominent, not only in the Chinese community, but in Toronto. And after that, there are new people coming in from Hong Kong, Taiwan, South Asia, and then they brought with them various cuisine. And then we sometimes use the word a movable feast.
That sounds very weighty. What does that exactly mean?
A movable feast is actually a book by Ernest Hemingway, so I have to be very careful. I call it a movable Asian feast. And you have different regional cuisine and non-Chinese, whether it's Malaysian, Thai, Vietnamese, Filipino, South Asian, and then to today. And we have a lot of restaurants outside in GTA, in Richmond Hill, Markham, Mississauga, and there's all kinds of Chinese restaurants and food.
So let's go back to the turn of the century and Sing Tom's Cafe. What would those early Chinese cafes have been like?
Just imagine we hop on a time machine or go with Michael J. Fox, Back to the Future, and you go into a diner, and there's no Chinese food there. You have milkshake, hamburger, hot dog, sandwiches, operated by Chinese people, but the majority of the clientele are non-Chinese. Europeans, some Americans, and you probably say, well, where do the Chinese people eat? Well, they don't go to those restaurants. They eat in a different type of places that serve Chinese food. Not what we call real Chinese food. There is no such a thing as real Chinese food if you're in Canada. I mean, it's food that they are more accustomed with, something from the farm. And so the early days, from 1900 until the 30s and the 40s, the diners, mostly on the Bay and Queen, eventually some on Yonge Street, and then they go up Elizabeth to Dundas. Those were the places where you will have Chinese restaurants, if we can use that term very loosely.
Was the term used loosely because they weren't really Chinese food restaurants, or what?
Being a retired professor chef, I don't know much about it, but I think when you want to have French food, Italian food, Chinese food, what do you mean? Does that have to be cooked by a Chinese person? Does it? Do you need all the ingredients from China? There's no such a thing. Because in order for you to have those ingredients, there are three things, in my opinion, that is very important to have a good food operation. Number one, ingredients. You have to have the right ingredient. Number two, technique. You have to have the right way to cook it. And number three, the most important thing if you're running a business, appreciation, which means that a customer walk in and look at you and say, can I have fish and chips? You cook fish and chips. You don't say, no, go somewhere else. We only serve this kind of food. So when people appreciate whatever you offer, then you have a business. So back in the turn of the century, there's no such a thing. People don't walk in and tell you what is real, what is not real. I really have problem with the word authentic. What is authentic food? I don't know. So, but if customer like whatever you cook and they pay for it, and the most important thing, they keep coming back and tell their friend, then you have a workable model. until the 1940, after the Second World War, then Chinese restaurant become a thing. Uh, when you can actually put down menu item, not in Chinese, but in English, and people say, "Yeah, I want this, I want that." Um, if you go to some of the old-fashioned Chinese run restaurant, they actually have the food item written on a piece of paper, and then they stick it on the wall. And if you don't read Chinese, you won't be able to order it, right? But but somehow, it worked. Imagine you go to a French or Italian restaurant, and all the food items are written in French and Italian. You walk in and say, I don't read this. And you may not be able to order some of the most iconic items.
So, what happened next?
In the 40, 50, and the 60, you have four very prominent restaurants, as I mentioned over and over again. There's more than four restaurants. The first one is called Nanking. It's on Elizabeth, just north of Hagerman, just behind, it's not there anymore, behind New City Hall. And then Lichee Garden, very famous, very upscale, had a piano, had somebody who greet you, sell cigarettes. It's like you walk into Hollywood. Woo is on Dundas. And the fourth one is called Kwong Chow. Now, I just attended a dinner called The Last Pillar because the Kwong Chow is sold to another family. They run a Hakka restaurant, and I'll talk about Hakka later. And that is the last pillar standing. So the so-called Big Four, and there are others, the Golden Dragon, the Good China. There are many, many Chinese restaurants. In the 60s, 1967, Canada opened up the immigration, and there are people coming by points. That's how much they can contribute to Canada, what skill they have, and many, many restaurants start opening in Chinatown. At the same time, there was a situation that new City Hall wanted to expand, and they want to get rid of Chinatown. And there's a movement called Save Chinatown. Unfortunately, only one quarter of Chinatown was saved from the Elizabeth and Dundas. The rest moved to Dundas and Spadina. And some moved to East Chinatown, which is Broadview and Girard. But the good news is there are more barbecue restaurants, dim sum restaurants, all kinds of regional Chinese food coming. And in the 1970s, at the end of the Vietnam War, you heard of the boat people, right? The boat people are people coming from Vietnam. A lot of them are Chinese national. They start setting up Vietnamese restaurant, Vietnamese French restaurant, Vietnamese Chinese restaurant. And there's all kinds of new restaurants set up in both East and West Chinatown. And it's great for us. I'm not here to talk about politics or history. I'm here to talk about food. When you have this whole diversity of food, it's good for us. And another interesting thing about the Vietnam War is not only people from Vietnam came to Canada and Toronto, Hong Kong people start coming too. And they are not coming over in a boat. They're not called boat people. They're called the yacht people. They have beautiful property. They don't sell the yacht across the Pacific, but they came over and then they sell really high-end, upscale Chinese restaurant, banquet halls. And along with Hong Kong, there are also people from Singapore, Taiwan, and now we have people coming from everywhere, from China, from when I mentioned about Hakka. Have you heard of this Hakka, John?
Yeah, Hakka, the fusion of Indian or Caribbean and Chinese food cuisine.
Now, that's only partly true.
Regardless, it's delicious.
Well, Hak Ga in Chinese means visitors, not foreigners. People who migrate from one region to another. They originate from China. Some of them went to India. Some of them went to Jamaica. And some of them went to Taiwan. But they are being received as guests, visitors. Hak is a guest. Now, but they brought with them a very interesting cuisine that have both Chinese and Jamaican, Chinese and Indian, and Chinese and Taiwanese. So can you imagine that kind? Another term that I'm really, really confused is the word fusion food.
My bad.
Well, wait, gentlemen, what is fusion?
Two things together?
It's a bit confusion for me. You know, when you have two things, you put on the same dish and charge people a lot of money, say this is fusion. I,
Oh, okay. I guess I need to brush up on my culinary terms then.
no, 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 no. It's perfectly okay. I'm not here to lecture. I retired a long time ago. But in school, we don't call it fusion. We call it cross culture cuisine. When you merge different culture and you create something new successfully, that's nice. But you have Hakka and you have Singapore, you have many other cuisine that is Asian. That's why I sometimes call this a movable Asian feast. And it's not religious, it's not fixed date. You can have a festival, you can have a holiday anytime. And now I think in the year 2025, 26, we're enjoying this cornucopia of food from different parts of the world.
So you said that you wanted to talk about food. So let's cover what they would have been serving. Those early Chinese cafes at Bloor and Queen, or sorry, no, Bay and Queen, or along Elizabeth Street, would they have been serving anything that, I know you don't love the term, that would be thought of as Chinese food? Or would they have been serving the same types of dishes you found anywhere else?
It's not Blue and Bay. That would be obvious. It's Queen and Bay. And they will be things that Europeans, especially East European, love to eat. A lot of people, working class people, they go into a diner, they will have something take out. Take out is a new thing, which means that they may not have enough food at home to pack a lunch. So they go to a diner, happen to be a Chinese diner, and they will have sandwiches and things, and maybe even a coffee to go. Now, you don't go in to have Peking duck. That will not be a good thing. You will go in to have things that you can pack it, put it into your lunch box, and go to work. So that is what happened in those diner. And a very famous one at the corner at Elizabeth and Dundas, not there anymore. It's called Lee's Grill. Lee's Grill was a popular place because people will go there, buy something to go, and walk across Dundas to the Bay Street bus terminal to go to Kitchener, Waterloo, Windsor. And the Lee's Grill will be typical of what I mentioned about Back to the Future, Marty McFly type of place. You go in, you see jukebox, you see people hanging out, smoking cigarette, and then you go in and order something to go. You don't order Chinese food. You order whatever you can take with you.
So, what about that first golden era? During the 40s and 50s, what would the Big Four have been serving? Because for many Torontonians, this would have been their first exposure to a different kind of cuisine.
Absolutely. Nanking is the first one. They are also one of the first that get a liquor license. And it has traditional so-called Chinese food. They also have roast beef and fish and chips and all that. They also have a bar. They have two huge television to watch hockey. And two teams in the original six love going there, the Toronto Maple Leaf and the Montreal Canadiens. In fact, the Leafs have some celebration there, and they get to know the staff and the manager so well that some of those hockey stars will drive the staff home because they like them so much. And then that will be Nanking. Nanking is a city in China. And I get to know one guy who run the bar. I call him Uncle Bobby. Obviously he speak English. And he was very friendly, and he talked about some of, I don't know, you guys, you're too young to remember some of the hockey players, Tim Horton, Frank Mahavlich from the Leafs. And then there is a Montreal Canadian they did not hate. His name is Boom Boom Jeffion. They, I mean, the Boomer is a big friend of Nanking. So that was one of the first big four. If you go to Lichee Garden, you think you walk into Hollywood. There's a doorman. You go upstairs, there's a lady in Cheongsam. There's a hostess. There's a lady selling cigarette. And there's not a bar. There is a whole grand dance floor with a piano and a four-piece band, jazz. And then people will go and eat really nice food. Lichee Garden. And then Saiwu opened on Dundas, and they are among one of the first, along with Kwong Chow, the last one, to serve dim sum. Now, dim sum means small pastry. Chinese people love to have it for breakfast and lunch, and tea. And Nanking and Kwong Chow are very popular among I always call them the Hollywood star, Sammy Davis Jr. and people who are local celebrity politicians. And when you have customers like those, other people will go there. I talked to a guy who worked at Saiwu. He said, Leo, this group of guys that came in, we didn't know whether we want to serve them or not. I said, well, who are they? They were the Rolling Stones. And they want to order booze. And I was not comfortable serving them. I said, did you serve them? Oh, yeah, they tip very well, too. Those are Mick and the boys. And, you have local politicians. You have, people from the movies. And my in-law, late Jean Lam and her husband Doyle, ran the Kwong Chow. And I remember going there and I saw the Smithers brothers. And they're very nice kid. They would come in and say, hey, I'm Tom, is my brother Dick, and nice place. So those are the big four.
So you mentioned the food there at the beginning. Would it be something that we're familiar with now, or has there been a growth in the food from that early 50s days to now?
Just to give you the name of the restaurant, Kwong Chow used to be called Chop Suey Tavern. You have a pretty good idea what is being served there. But they also have very good chef from Hong Kong, and they have dim sum chef. There are people who can do a very, very nice meal. There's a picture that my wife Arlene can show you of the Prime Minister, John Diefenbaker, eating there, learning how to use chopsticks. And when you have a picture like that, this is way before Google and Facebook. When people say, "Oh, you mean the Prime Minister eat there?" Yes, and the mayor of Toronto and local politician, people will rush as a lineup every day because they were hoping to spot, a celebrity going to places like Saiwu, Kwong Chow, Nanking, and Lichee Garden. There is this whole thing about spotting a star, and the food is also good.
How would you say the rest of Toronto responded to these restaurants as they emerged and grew over the 20th?
Well, A very interesting segment of the Chinese restaurant clientele are the Jewish people. For some reason, Jewish people love Chinese food. And one restaurant is called Sea High. Originally, it's in Dundas and Bay, in Chinatown, Elizabeth, and they moved up to Bathurst and Wilson. It became sort of a landmark of the Jewish community, and they even make a movie there called, I can't remember the exact name, A Jewish Christmas. When there was a time Canada, Toronto, the good, everything's closed for on Sunday and Christmas. The only places that are open are Chinese restaurants, and Jewish people love Chinese food. I mean, as a Chinese Canadian, I think we love the Jewish clientele because they will come in, they will eat whatever is there, and I think the rest of the Canadian non-Chinese clientele sort of follow suit and say, well, maybe there's something that is worth trying more than just a egg roll or whatever. And they do not know what is Chinese, what is Korean, what is Japanese. And people say, what is yakka mian? It's just noodle. And what is this? What is that? Sweet and sour chicken ball. And at the end of the meal, they get a fortune cookie. Now, gentlemen, you know the fortune cookie is not Chinese. But when you go to a Chinese restaurant and you don't get a fortune cookie, you say, hey, there's something missing.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing. I think the Chinese people, and I give credit to the early people, they know what the customer want and they give to the customer. You want Chinese fortune cookie? No problem. You will get one.
So, what are some of the like the behind the scenes stories that you can share with us?
Gordon Lightfoot, you know, we all know Gordon Lightfoot. He liked to go to the Kwong Chow. He liked to sit in the corner and he would not want the people to come up to him. So the management in would call him Mr. Gordon. Mr. Gordon would sit in the back and just eat by himself. And he's a regular customer. Now, I never met Mr. Gordon, but I understand, he is a regular. I talk about hockey stars. You know, Canadian, we all love, the Leafs and hockey. So when you are a lot of uh, hockey people going there, the place become very, very, in place to go. Now, there's also local uh, politicians. I'm not close with them, but I understand that the former mayor, David Crombie, was a regular there. And then the Lieutenant Governor, Pauline McGibbon, Roland Michener, who's eventually became the Governor General. So those are VIP, but it's the ordinary people that love to go to places like that, who will be great in supporting those restaurants. The people from the 52 division, cops, they will come in, they only want, takeout food. Okay. So in addition to the coffee and donut, they will come to Chinatown. And it's great to see police in your place and not for the wrong reason. So, and it sort of give people a sense of, security. Oh, yeah, cops are here. So this place is safe. So for me, I came in 1966. I was in high school and then eventually university. Going to Chinatown is not an adventure. It's really heartwarming for me because I'm from Hong Kong, Macau, and I like Chinese food too. And I live in North Toronto. There's not a lot of, real Chinese restaurant up there. So, but eventually, um, something happened. My wife and I got married in 1976. And my in-laws said, Leo, welcome to the family. But you cannot have the wedding here because on a Saturday we have to do business. Why don't you go to another restaurant? So we went to China House at Bathurst and Eglinton. There's House of China House, and that was nice. So there are restaurants outside Chinatown by then, and Sea High and so on. And it seems to be very, I don't want to use the word acceptable, popular among non Chinese people. So that is some of my, memories, good memories of going to restaurants, Chinese restaurants.
So, my last question would be, over the decades that you were a chef, how did Chinese food change from, say, the 70s until the 2000s?
Okay, I think the biggest change is the appreciation by non Chinese people. Because for Chinese people, you boast about how good you are. The rest of the communities are okay. But if non Chinese people are recognized, and I don't mean just a Michelin star, I don't mean just a good write up in a newspaper. The best indication of acceptance is people come to your restaurant on a regular basis. I want to mention the restaurant. I don't want to mention the name. They opened last week. I went in yesterday, and 2 o'clock they said, "I'm sorry, we ran out of food." Oh, that's a good sign, right? So I said, can I just have a takeout, whatever you have? He said, okay. And as they saw me sitting in the corner, he said, oh, there's an empty table. And I said, I thought you're not serving anyone. Oh, no, no, for you, okay. They have no idea why. So when you have people coming from, and that restaurant is in North York. So I think it's a good sign that people find a restaurant is, I'll try it out. And I always believe that the best measure of a good restaurant is the number of return customer.
That's great. You offered so much. That was very interesting. I've got like a really random question that I've always wondered. I don't know if you'd be able to answer this, but I've always wondered. I remember growing up, so like in the late 80s and early 90s, mostly the 90s, I remember a chain of restaurants called Holy Chow being completely dominant in the city, and then it just completely disappeared. And now there's no, not that it's a good thing, but now there's no chain Chinese food restaurants anymore. And I'm just wondering, do you have any perspective on why that is?
Okay, I don't know the owners of the Holy Chow, but as a former teacher, George Brown and Humber College, I'm also the placement officer. I place people for apprenticeship and employment. And then I remember the Holy Child group. I talked to a guy called Mr. Johnson, forget his first name, and he was very accommodating, me putting students there. And Holy Child, and the name itself kind of make fun of the Chinese language. Holy Child. Okay.
Yeah.
But there's also Manchu Walk, then there's also other chain restaurant, buffet restaurant, and I I I, I think people associate chain being something that is good and bad. Good is the standard uniformity. There has to be a minimum, not minimum. There has to be a standard that the operator. When people become a franchise and start doing their own thing, why do you want to be in this chain? And also, the two reasons, and forgive me from being a former teacher, of people who fail in the restaurant business or any business. Number one is the lack of capital, meaning that COVID or anything, if you don't have staying power for 2 to 3 years when the time's bad, you're going to fail. Number two is the management and the owners. Do not blame your staff, because who hired them, who trained them, who retained them? If you do not have people who can deliver, you're going to do everything yourself, and that's not going to happen. So I think training is very important. And then I'm from Macau. People from Macau, I don't want to speak for everybody from Macau, We usually don't gamble. We don't go there. We go there to work because the house always win. So you have to have some money to stay in business. Otherwise, just go to a restaurant. Don't try to own a restaurant. It's a fantasy. It's not that glamorous.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a good soundbite to end this on. Adam, did you have anything else you want to add?
I just wanted to thank Leo for appearing on this episode. He and his wife Arlene are the first married couple to guest star on this podcast. One hopes the first of many in the future.
Well, thank you. It's a big honor to be on this stage. I will tell my wife that so that it's not just Emily Blunt and John Krasinski.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Okay.
we, I enjoy talking to you guys, and I look forward to share this with my friends and family.
Thank you so much, Leo. And for everybody out there that listened to this, have a wonderful, safe, happy holidays and go get yourself some Chinese food.